appreciate very much the work that this task force has done. It's been a very active, involved group who are not shy at all. The group likes to talk, and they have been very much concerned about protecting your university and your dollars to make sure that we keep the university as whole as possible. Last year when we met, and this is a slide from last year's presentation, we talked about the kinds of things we had to do and the kind of timeline we were under moving through from February of last year into this time period of this year. We talked about building a culture of stewardship, how if everybody worked together we could meet the crises that were before us. We introduced at that time that we were going to do a voluntary buyout plan and that it was going to be reviewed by the board, and as soon as it was approved, we'd go forward with it, but we wanted the university community to know that we were going to do this. We talked about adding an incentive to the post-retirement program for faculty. We said in July we were going to get some additional information about appropriations. We'd see if we were going to get any stimulus dollars. We'd know what tuition and fees would be, and we have an idea of what kind of dollars could be recovered from the voluntary buyout. We said when we got to September we'd know a little bit more based on what our final enrollment figures were. We would also see whether or not we needed to take any actions to respond to any further cuts from appropriations at that time. And we had prepared, but we have never recommended, and I repeat that, the Budget Task Force has never recommended, but we have worked on plans if we needed to do a furlough, either voluntary or involuntary. And we felt like that would be a tool we could use in September or maybe in January of 2010 should we incur additional appropriation cuts. I'm here today to tell you we have not had to use those tools, and we're very pleased for that. The work that has been done to this point by all of you has helped to move us to a point where we have not had to look at using those tools at this time. So we're in relatively good condition from where we were looking last year as to what the year might hold. And Dr. Collins is going to talk to you about where those monies have come from and where we've saved and what the state has done and how that gets us to our current position financially. So here are some of the actions that we've taken since last February. We have established budgetary savings, and remember we challenged every division of the university to look at ways that they could come up with savings during this period of time, reducing travel, cutting out unnecessary expenses, and the university saved $1.6 million in that process last spring semester. We established the Call to Action website, and all of you gave us suggestions. Not all of you, but a large number of you gave us suggestions. And the task force took those suggestions. And some of them we referred to the appropriate offices for action. We even created a new continuous improvement team out of one of the suggestions. We really took what you as a university community said to heart and were able to implement some things that made a real difference in cost avoidance or even potentially some revenue generation. One of the suggestions that we got from the Call to Action website was that we should look at whether or not we should combine the university libraries, the medical library, and e-learning. So we'll have a report in just a little bit from the CIT committee that looked at that. We also got a suggestion that said we ought to look at whether or not there would be some savings realized if students were required to have laptop computers or they used electronic readers or some other actions that would cut down on the need for large computer labs. So right now Dr. Countermine is chairing a special work group that's looking at that. We know that there's some pros and cons, and there's been a lot in the literature about that lately. But we're looking to see what would be the implications of requiring our students to have laptops, and would that really result in a savings for us and for the students. As you know, we did implement the voluntary buyout plan, and Dr. Collins is going to give you a report on how many people took it and the savings realized from that. We did offer the incentive payment for new faculty who wanted to participate in the post-retirement plan. We had some faculty do that, but it wasn't really very widely embraced. We also, in some of these voluntary buyout vacancies, we were able to reassign administrators and staffs, and units were encouraged to re-engineer work. So even when they rehired people into some of those positions, they were able to do that at a lower price. We found some positions were not replaced at all, and many others were modified based on the buyout. You know that we did close the administrative units in Bristol, and as I've already talked about, the voluntary and involuntary furlough plans. We also took some of the stimulus money that came to us from the federal government through the state and offered a Bucks Stimulus Challenge, an opportunity for people to have creative ideas on how we might avoid cost or how we might increase revenues. If you had some money to spend, how could you spend it and use it for the good of the university? Dr. Marsh Groovy chaired this committee. They looked at 30 proposals. They recommended 6 of them were funded, and that was approved by the president. They awarded a total of $321,370 in this year's review. Those projects have projected about a $9.5 million potential revenue generation that could come from the dollars that they would spend, or avoiding almost $200,000 in cost. So we're going to watch these projects very carefully and look for the benefits that might accrue to the committee. There will be a Buck Stimulus Challenge again this year, so be thinking if you have ideas that might cost a little money now, but in the long run might result in revenue for the university. It would be an opportunity to bring that forward. So you'll hear more about that as deadlines are established for the next review. When we reported to you last year, we said we were establishing 6 continuous improvement teams. We did establish the one additional one on libraries and e-learning. So for the summer, for the spring semester, those CITs met, reviewed, interviewed, researched. We have bibliographies from some of them. We have lots of suggestions. And the chairs of the CITs reported to the task force periodically to let us know where they were and presented their final reports in July. So from July until the 1st of February,